thanks to Oxford Circus Physiotherapy in central London. Dr. Brandreth will be round to clean out the bedpans in the morning, as if the NHS hasn't got enough problems. And with us now is former SNP superstar and former SNP MP John Nicholson. Welcome, John.
Hello, Nick.
Michael, the biggest groan I've heard from you so far tonight was when I mentioned the DUP. Why?
Well, because I think that much of the electorate will be dismayed at the Conservatives making a pact with the DUP. And that's because the only thing they know about the DUP is that it's against same-sex marriage. And given the tremendous progress that the Conservatives have made in winning over the LGBT community, introducing same-sex marriage in Britain, in Great Britain, not in Northern Ireland, it seems a tremendous setback. On top of that, I do take quite seriously what John Major has said about jeopardising the peace.
He's right, is he?
Well, he could be right. You know, if the Prime Minister were going to now involve all the parties, including Sinn Féin, and if she were going to talk to the Labour Party and to the Liberal Democrats and the SNP and everybody else about Brexit, and if she were going to, then take those discussions over to her European partners, maybe this would all be all right. But so far, she's not looked very good at talking to her cabinet, let alone her party, let alone other parties, let alone people in Europe. So one doesn't have much hope for it, really.
So what should she have done?
Well, she's paying a great price for this. I think she could have formed a minority government. Because all she's going to get from the DUP is support for the budget and support for, for the Queen's speech and a motion of confidence. And probably those things are available anyway, because the DUP does not want to put in Jeremy Corbyn, who, after all, has been a sympathiser with the IRA over the years. So I think you could have relied on the DUP for that without actually making an agreement.
Of course, there'll be no pothole unfilled in Ulster, will there, by the end of this? Let's bring Liz in on this. Of course, the coalition of chaos was what the Conservatives were saying you guys would be involved in, and yet the reality now is?
Well, when I look at May now, she's been a boxer who's been, punched to the floor. She's sort of staggered back up, head going round. You're not quite sure whether she's going to fall over or what's going to happen when she has another punch. And, her weakness and her brittleness and her fear and her inability to do what's right now, which is to say, look, the public has voted as they have. I'm going to change our approach. We're going to work with other parties. We're going to work with the devolved administrations. We're going to be open and transparent and set out the risks and benefits of different approaches. She's shown none of that. In fact, she came to the outside Downing Street after the result and pretended as if it hadn't even happened.
Yes.
We're just going to get on with the job. I think she's not up to the job.
Well, she's changed, she's managed to make just about managing more of a mantra now into a sort of lifestyle choice, really, hasn't it, when you look at it? There's nothing to define her, really. John, let's talk about the landscape in Scotland. What's happened there?
We lost quite a lot of seats.
And why?
As you know. Well, I think Ruth Davidson has managed to make the conversation in Scotland about the Constitution. We had local government elections recently, and the leaflets I was getting through the doors didn't mention bins, schools or roads. They said, vote for councillors who will stop independence. Well, I don't know what your local council's like, but mine is not filled with Robespierres who are tackling grand constitutional issues. So she was successful in that. And so what we saw at the time of the general election was people coalesce in individual constituencies round the party that was most likely to beat the SNPs. There were informal pacts all across the country. In my own constituency, for example, I didn't see a single Tory or Labour poster up anywhere. There were no leaflets. They just stood back in order to let the Lib Dem candidate win, and I think that happened all across the country.
So we can say farewell to Indie Ref too?
Well, my view always was that we should have Indie Ref 2 once we knew what the details were of Brexit, because people wanted to know what Brexit was about. And I think the Brexit deal will be a very bad deal, and I think a lot of people will feel that they were sold a pup. And so for me, Indie Ref 2 was giving people, just giving them a choice. Because the Lib Dem position, for example, is utterly absurd, because the Lib Dems say, We want to stop you having a damaging second referendum on independence, but we're happy to have a damaging second
You can't
referendum
complain
on
about
Brexit.
Other parties making the campaign about what they want it to be, not what you want it
I'm
to
not.
be
I'm
about.
I was asked a question, what did I think it was about? I'm answering that question.
It didn't help the cause of another independence referendum, though, did it, last Thursday?
You
can't in any way, or can you? Are you going to argue that?
Well, no, I'm not
No.
going to. I'm not going to argue that. You've got people in Scotland, especially young people, who are passionate about a second independence referendum. And if you look at the figures, you'll notice there was no Corbyn bounce in Scotland. The Labour Party did quite badly.
You've got more seats. We don't
yes,
have a team
you
of
could,
Labour MPs
you could
in
more,
Scotland.
you get more seats, but you could often.
That's the name of the game.
You could,
in
yeah,
first past the post.
Well, I know that. I know that. I'm painfully aware of what the name of the game is. I'm just saying there wasn't a Corbyn bounce. So you do have young people who are passionate about independence, and then you get a lot of, especially older voters, who don't want to see a second independence referendum. Scotland is very divided.
I'm going to bring you back in on Tim Farron in a moment. Let's get to Liz. Just talk a little bit about Labour. I mean, as I said right at the top, you did in fact lose, but everybody feels you won. In reality, you have lost again. Your party has lost again. Your party has come up short. And Mr Corbyn, although he did better than expected, he's still lost.
He confounded people's expectations, including my own. I think the campaign was excellent. It really changed when the two manifestos came out.
I remember being here and saying, why don't you get behind him? Why don't the Labour backbenchers support him?
Well, I've never seen such a unified campaign since I was elected.
Right, I think we've got to bring Michael in here before he goes the colour of his shirt.
There are people with many different views locally, and we all pulled together,
Right.
certainly in my seat.
You see, the
But we
bacon of
didn't.
so many Labour
But
MPs, don't you?
look, we went in 20 points behind. I expected to lose seats, and we ended up gaining them. But we haven't won.
No.
And
many would say it was
order-
uncosted as
and
well, by the way.
In order, so there are a number of things. If we're going to win, we have to win 64 seats to form a majority next time. So there are, that is still a big mountain to
You
climb.
make Mrs May sound like a realist. What has happened to your party is it is now firmly in the grip of the vote. And you know better than anybody that these are very nasty people. And these people are going to drive the likes of you out of the party. They're going to have you deselected. They're going to pursue you on social media. They will get you out. They have a very nasty... You say you were united. You don't believe in this tosh that was in the Labour Party
Can I
manifesto.
just say,
you don't believe in renationalising all these industries.
In my party locally, everybody pulled together.
No, but
and it
suddenly,
made a huge difference.
Suddenly you and Chukaramuna in particular make it sound like the only disagreement you have with Jeremy Corbyn was you thought he might not
No,
win.
I've never actually said that.
You don't support any of the things that were in
I have never said that.
Most of the things are in that
There have been
manifesto.
two things.
Your
One
party
is...
has been taken over by a very dangerous hard left.
Okay.
People who have sympathised with terror over the years, and these people are now within a hair's breadth of taking power in this country.
There were two,
And you should be more worried
there
than I am
are
about that.
two issues. One was whether he could do well in an election, and he has, as I said, full credit to him for that. But I think there are, certainly from the conversations I have with people, issues like defence and security
But
have got to be
Michael's
addressed.
central
if we're going
point,
to
which
be-
is the party is effectively on the verge of a takeover.
I don't feel that at all.
You don't?
In
All right.
in my patch, look, there are some on the hard left. There are some people who are supporters of Corbyn who worked their butts off in my campaign, and I am very grateful to them
Corbyn
for it.
supporters think that the Parliamentary Labour Party is the obstacle to taking power, and it must be destroyed, and you will be destroyed in the process.
Let's come back to you. I saw you roll your eyes. Tim Farron, we must talk about that. The reason that he can't lead a party because of his faith. John?
Bizarre. The problem wasn't his faith. People respect his faith. The problem was he couldn't give a coherent, clear and straightforward answer to the question, do you think gay sex is wrong? The answer to that is no, I don't think gay sex is wrong. I think gay sex is fine for those who want to have it. I personally don't. I'm talking about him, obviously, in this instance. For him to try and make himself a religious martyr now is absolutely absurd. And I think the thing about it is I don't want to be tolerated by Tim Farron, who thinks I'm a sinner and he's got to pray for me and tolerate me. I think gay people should be respected in the 21st century. And I think that's the central message that he got wrong.
can I ask you before we bid you a farewell for now, when's the next general election?
Well, I suspect that the Tories are very, very keen not to have another election. I think Mrs May could be like, she could be in the rocking chair in the bay window in Psycho, being gently propped and rocked backwards and forwards for as long as they possibly can, because they don't want to go to the country again, because I think they know they will lose more seats. But whether the coalition of chaos with a ghastly homophobic DUP can survive, as the old worst journalistic cliche goes, only time will tell.
John, your time is up, but thank you. Good to see you again.